Hi there, Jason here for the Hagbayon channel and TMS Talks. Do we have pre-Hispanic record of bushcraft in the Philippines? Previously, we have posted videos that relate to pandemic-induced plantitos and plantitas. And we shared videos on bushcraft and prepping and said that both are healthy and useful activities, more so right now during the pandemic. And we even espoused the in and out approach and said that it's something we can adapt. It's something we can adapt right now. In essence, the approach is uh, being familiar with the geometry of the city while being aware or being knowledgeable of the skills required in going off grid or going rural. And related to it, we discussed the legality of blade carry, because in relation to survivalism, prepping, bushcraft, etc., we have now a trend. People are now developing their EDC hobby and they carry pocket knives like this. And we said that the law on the matter is Batas Pambansa 6. And according to that law, blade carry or carrying anything that can be used as deadly weapon outside of one's residence is what? Is prohibited. Unless part of one's livelihood or in pursuit of any lawful activity. So if you are using blades as part of your livelihood because you are a farmer, you are a barber, a cook, or a chef, you are, say, a blade peddler or seller, then you are allowed you are allowed to carry. Or for instance, you are in pursuit of a lawful activity, you are going camping, going hiking, and yes, bushcraft, going to your bushcraft camp. Or if you are a Kali practitioner and you are a Kali teacher or practitioner and you have ID that would support it, and for example, you are a what? You are a person who is part of a blades exhibit, a blade collector, and you are on your way to the exhibit to bring your blades there and showcase them, then you are allowed. There's so many other lawful activities that we can think of. Feel free to post in the comment below if you can think of other lawful activities. Now we have here something related to bushcraft and prepping. This is a Bicol Ginunting with Maravical scabbard. Bicol Ginunting. And also we have here Cuchillo, a Bicol Cuchillo. Now, did you know that these items were forged and crafted the bushcraft way? These are TMS blades, by the way. Did you know that they were crafted and forged using the bushcraft way? Meaning to say, the native or the traditional way. No use of power tools or even electricity. Okay. And the bushcraft way of forging blades. Now this particular piece has carabao horn hilt carved as pinaniki. It's very difficult to carve carabao horn hilt. And it has bronze barat or tang rivet. The tang here is through and through. It protrudes through this and then locked by this particular item here. And it has bronze ferrule or tikala, carabao horn handguard, 5160 carbon steel, Maravical wood, very hard, very hard. Consider it as iron wood. this one as well. They were crafted the bushcraft way. That's why it's important for us to uh, discuss bushcraft, because in bushcraft you are actually even taught to make your own tools, to make your own blades, for instance. Now, going back to the question, do we have pre-Hispanic record of bushcraft in the Philippines? So at least we know for the record. Do we have pre-Hispanic record of bushcraft in the Philippines? Record would show that the culture of bushcraft is native to the Philippines, of course, because we are an agricultural country. And these records by the Spaniards or by Europeans would show us that when they got here, Filipinos were practicing some kind of a bushcraft lifestyle that we can look up to. First, we look at the book by Horacio de la Costa, S.J., a Jesuit priest, and the book is entitled Readings in Philippine History. This book is about reports. This book is an annotation of reports by Europeans. No? Europeans who got to the Philippines during the early stages of Philippine history. Okay, first is the report of the Italian traveler Gemelli Carreri. Gemelli Carreri. The report is on the Negritos. You see, the Negritos were what? Were non-seafarers. So they must have got to the Philippines by way of land bridges when the continents were still connected with each other. Were still connected by land. So they just walk, they just hike. So there, another bushcraft skill, hiking, long distance hiking. So let's read the account by Gemelli Carreri. The blacks, by the Spaniards called Negrito, who live on the mountains and in thick woods, whereof there is plenty in Manila, so Manila was still forested at that time, differ quite from all the rest. They are mere barbarians. Barbarians is the use of the word barbarians. So the caveat here is that we are reading our history through the biases or through the lenses of our invaders or of foreigners, through the cultural lens, societal lens of foreigners. So let's proceed. They are mere barbarians and feed on such fruit and roots as mountains afford, and upon all they can kill, even to monkeys, snakes, and rats. So they were foragers and hunters. And because they were such, they were barbarians. So look at the difficulty of relying upon reports by foreigners. They go naked, except their privities, which they cover with the bark of trees, by them called bahaks. So he spells bahag as Bahaques. And the women with the cloth woven of the fibers of trees, called tapis. Tapis is spelled as Tapisse. Tapis. So let's continue. They use no other ornament but bracelets made of rushes in Indian canes of several colors. They have no laws, letters, or government, but that which kindred makes, for they all obey the head of the family. So their government was their family, no centralized government. The women carried their children in wallets made of the bark of trees, and tied about them with a cloth, as some women of Albania do in Italy, or like the Irish women. Irish women. So there's comparison in apparel. Comparison in apparel. Carreri is comparing the Negritos to the women of Albania and Irish, Ireland, I mean. Now, related to that, Dr. Danny Herona talks of Bicol and, of course, the land bridges that made the hike trail of the Negritos possible. Okay, it is theorized that the Bicol Peninsula and the island of Catanduanes once belonged to a huge, elongated landmass, which included present islands of Samar, Leyte, and Bohol. So here, there is a theory that supports the Bicol and Visayan connection. And as a matter of fact, according to this theory, the island of Catanduanes was once connected with Samar and Leyte. And Masbate, Samar, Leyte, and Bohol. And Masbate belonged to a separate landmass together with Panay and Negros. So Masbate was connected with Panay and Negros. So that's could be the Bicol Visayan connection. So something about land bridges. Let's continue. More readings on records of bushcraft in the Philippines. The next account comes from the missionaries. The missionaries who went to Mindoro and observed the Mangyans. The missionaries who went to Mindoro and observed the Mangyans. Okay. Because even if the early Filipinos didn't have organized or centralized government, they had their worship, they had their indigenous religion, animism perhaps. So let's read. They wander through the forest, fastnesses, naked, save that nature prompts them to cover their private parts with the bark of trees. So we are reminded of the TV show Naked and Afraid. Gold and silver coins they seem as nothing worth, but consider themselves wealthy if they own knives and cooking pots. So here, gold and silver coins they esteem as nothing worth, but consider themselves wealthy if they own knives and cooking pots. So there, very bushcraft in mentality. Um, because in bushcraft, uh, uh, you are actually detached from the gridlock of the legal tender. And the legal tender during those days were gold and silver coins. Now let's read more. Let's read further about spirituality, their spirituality. If fortune smiles on them and they bring down a buffalo, they spread a feast in which they piously make libations to their dead forebears. For being barbarians, they considered all the good things that they received to be a gift from their ancestors. If anyone falls sick, the others, to effect his cure, cook a chicken and other foods and assemble the clan. The native who has power over the ancestral spirits, perhaps the Babaylan, summons them with strange cries and bids them to the feast, in order that they might make the sick man well again. The banquet over, they collect the choicer morsels which remain, take them to the river, and wading waist deep into it, plunge the morsels into the water. They then stir up the sand of the riverbed this way and that, for so they think, poor misguided people, to restore to the sick man the health which the spirits had taken away. So they're describing here a ritual of healing. So at that time, spirituality was somehow part of healing. I actually personally was able to witness something similar, something like this among the Agta. They believe that uh, when someone gets sick and the Encantos took his spirit, you can what? You can free or liberate that spirit by using a glass of water and by stirring the glass of water after saying some orasyon. And the belief is that when you stir it after saying the orasyon, you are actually liberating the spirit of the sick person. So there, indeed, we have a record of the bushcraft lifestyle in the Philippines way back, as described by our enemies, the Spaniards. So that's the caveat. we are sometimes reading history through the lens, through the eyes of our colonizer. So we have to be very careful. Okay, and that it is then uh, important for us to know that they uh, what they valued their knives and cooking pots more than money, more than money. So this tells us something about the bushcraft philosophy of being off grid, being detached from the legal tender, and valuing your tools. And in fact, even now, here in Bicol, we build blades the bushcraft way, the bushcraft way. So there, let's have more about this later. Perhaps we can share videos on some bushcraft activities and some hiking and camping activities. Some more blade features. So thank you for joining me and see you again next time. Be safe and remember, the pen is mightier with a sword.